This presentation covers my BizCafe simulation experience running my cafe, The Human Bean. When building The Human Bean, I wanted the cafe to feel premium, sustainable, and welcoming. I chose a green and organic theme, invested in high-quality coffee, and focused on creating community-oriented brand identity. My tagline, "Where strangers become regulars," reflected the type of atmosphere I wanted customers to associate with the cafe. More than just a coffee shop, it is a community that inspires loyalty. My first week exposed several operational weaknesses immediately. I started with only 6 servers, shorter operating hours, and lower inventory levels. As a result, managers became stressed, servers were overworked, customer satisfaction was low, and the business was actually losing money during that first week. But at that point, I realized demand forecasting and staffing decisions were much more important than I originally expected. Following those first weeks, I dove into the numbers to try to locate what was going wrong. My gross margin was always above industry average, which gave me the bravery to experiment. But my net income was still negative. I knew early on it would be lower, but I challenged myself to get it positive ASAP. For week 2 decisions, I switched from the everybody strategy to the luxury strategy and attempted to rebalance my weekly net income, at least in the short term. I increased my coffee price sharply to $4.80 and switched my coffee quality from high tier to organic. And this was an attempt to make this increase seem more acceptable to my customers. I maximized my hours per day, hoping this would help the quantity of my coffee sales. I doubled my servers and raised the staff to 20% higher wages than the industry. The hope here was that the effects of retention would cause more efficiency and higher customer satisfaction over time, since we didn't have to retrain staff. These updates immediately paid off. My gross margin only went down by around 3%, but I began commanding 10 to 14% the share of revenue each week. This was one of the most important turning points in the simulation because it shifted the cafe from survival mode into growth mode. I consistently ran marketing campaigns the whole duration. I always had the basic social media awareness campaign happening. I chose a longer website build out, so it did not go live until week 5. When it did, you can see an immediate spike in my brand awareness. I did an experiment week 9 to test no marketing spend. You can see that week that it stabilized my brand awareness, but it was already at 95 to begin with. There was no detectable effect on revenue growth. The lesson there was no real penalty, but no real loss. So I continued to opt into my campaigns for the remainder. Customer satisfaction was one of the only metrics that continued to baffle me until the end. We started with 6 servers, but at week 3, we dramatically increased to 20. You can see an immediate spike in customer satisfaction that week. Then I continued to add at least 1 server every single week. Our staff wages were consistently above industry standard, and I also invested in employee training programs. It was extremely tricky to get the balance of enough staff, but not too much. And even then, our customer satisfaction never recovered. I believe that the rapid growth created problems, creating declining customer satisfaction as the business scaled faster than our operations could handle. This taught me scaling successfully is not just about increasing revenue. It also requires balancing staffing, morale, and operational efficiency and customer experience at the same time. Here was my income statement throughout the simulation. The Human Bean reached positive net income by week 4. The gross margin remained consistently over 90% for the whole simulation, which is an excellent ratio. Cost of goods also remained relatively stable. You can see over time, the increase in revenue was enough to completely eclipse our expense costs. This was the balance sheet over the course. You can see over time, my cash on hand became massive. While every week I would invest in every way I could, there was almost no way to spend this excess cash, unfortunately. And then this was my cash flow over time. So you can see how fast cash was moving in and out. We had a lot of early investment activities, but nothing ever large enough to eclipse our cash from operations. One of my biggest takeaways from the simulation was that the answer was always in the numbers. Breaking even earlier and having higher cash on hand allowed me to continually make bigger risk and investments that paid off in the long run. I also began looking at decisions from an operational value, not a monetary value standpoint. This translated into making decisions like higher insurance packages, but keeping baked goods out of house so that it didn't stress out my daily operations. Overall, I really enjoyed the simulation, and gamifying the lessons really paid off for me. It reminded me a lot of the video games I play, but with real life numbers, and it was an incredibly valuable lesson. Thank you.